I almost didn't look up. Just a stranger. Just another moment to ignore. I was at my favorite cafe, glued to my phone, when I noticed a woman struggling to open the door with a stroller. I almost ignored her, but decided to help. She smiled and said, "Thank you. You have no idea how much I needed that today." I went back to my seat, but her words stuck with me. Looking outside, I saw her on a bench, wiping tears while rocking her baby. Curious, I went over and asked if she was okay. She said, "It's been a rough day. My car broke down and I didn't think anyone cared anymore, but you noticed." That small moment changed my perspective. Now, I make it a point to look up. Sometimes the simplest acts can mean the world to someone. Like it will mean the world to me if you like this video and subscribe so I can make more videos like this. On my way home, I saw a dog tied to a pole with a note that said, "I can't take care of him anymore. He looked scared and hungry. People passed by without stopping." My heart broke, but I wasn't sure what to do. I sat next to him and he slowly wagged his tail. I untied him, took him home, and gave him food and water. He looked at me with those big eyes, full of gratitude. I posted about him online, hoping to find his owner or a new family. But the more time I spent with him, the more I realized he already found his family, me. If you believe every animal deserves love, subscribe and share this story. It was my dad's birthday, but I was too busy with work to visit him. He called me in the morning and said, "It's okay if you can't come. I know you're busy." I promised to call him later, but I forgot. The next day, my mom called and said, "Your dad waited for you all night. He sat by the window, hoping you'd come." My heart sank. I rushed to his house and found him sitting quietly, staring outside. I hugged him and said, "I'm sorry, Dad. I should have been here." He smiled and said, "I'm just glad you're here now. Don't wait for tomorrow to show your loved ones you care." If you agree, subscribe and share this with someone you love.
I almost walked past him, but something made me stop. I was in a rush, earbuds in, focused on my jog when an elderly man on a bench caught my eye. He waved, and though I was tempted to keep going, I shrugged and walked over. "Got a minute, young one?" he asked. I wasn't in the mood for a chat, but his warm smile stopped me. He started talking about his garden, how he'd spent decades nurturing it, only to have the city tear it down for a parking lot. His voice shook as he spoke about the loss, not just of his flowers, but of the memories tied to them. At first, I thought, I don't have time for this. But as I listened, I realized I was learning more than I ever could have expected. He wasn't asking for help, just someone to hear him. When he finished, he smiled. "Thank you for listening. It means more than you know." As I walked away, I realized I'd gained more from that moment than any job could give me. Sometimes, just listening is all it takes to make a difference. Subscribe if you agree, share if you listened to someone yesterday.
My sister and I had a big fight last week. I was so sure I was right that I refused to apologize. This morning, I got a call. She'd been in an accident. My heart sank. I rushed to the hospital, rehearsing my apology, afraid it might be too late. When I walked into her room, I broke down. "I'm sorry," I whispered. The woman in the bed smiled weakly and said, "Me too." Then the nurse walked in. "Oh, you're her sister?" she asked. "Sister?" I said, confused. She checked her clipboard. "You're in the wrong room." I laughed nervously and rushed to the right room, where my sister sat up, scratches on her face but smiling. "Took you long enough," she teased. I hugged her. "I'm sorry," I said. "Me too," she replied. Don't let pride keep you from making things right. Life is fragile. Act before it's too late. Subscribe if this means something to you. Like for more videos like this. I'll never forget the day I almost let panic turn me into a cheat. It started as one of those mornings. My alarm didn't go off. My little sister thought my notebook was a coloring pad, and I barely made it to school with toothpaste still on my sleeve. I slumped into my seat just as Mrs. Adewale said, "Pass your homework forward." My stomach sank. Homework? My mind raced. I hadn't done it. "Relax," Chibuzo whispered, sliding his paper toward me. "Just copy mine. It's no big deal." My heart pounded. I stared at his answers. One glance and I'd be off the hook. But something about it didn't sit right. I heard my mom's voice in my head. "It's not about being perfect. It's about being honest." When Mrs. Adewale reached my desk, my hand shook as I handed her my blank worksheet. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Adewale. I forgot to do it." She raised an eyebrow, then surprised me with a smile. "Thank you for being honest. I'll give you an extra day." I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Relief washed over me until I saw Chibuzo getting called out. Turns out he'd copied someone else's homework, and Mrs. Adewale had caught the duplicate answers. That could have been me! Walking home, I felt something unexpected. Pride. I'd messed up, sure, but I'd owned it. And in the end, doing the right thing felt way better than getting away with the wrong one. Drop 3 hearts for more videos like this. I thought I was just saving a helpless cat from a raging wildfire until she spoke to me. I was hiking alone when I saw it. A wildfire raging in the distance, its smoke curling into the sky like an ominous warning. I quickened my pace, heart pounding. Then I saw her, a tiny, soot-covered cat huddled beneath a scorched bush, her emerald eyes wide with fear. She meowed weakly, barely audible over the crackling flames. I didn't think twice. I scooped her up, shielding her with my jacket, and ran. The fire grew louder, closer. I could feel its heat licking at my back. My lungs burned and my legs ached, but I couldn't leave her behind. We reached a clearing and I collapsed, clutching the cat. That's when it happened. She jumped from my arms, looked back at me, and spoke. "You've passed the test," she said, her voice calm and clear. I froze, staring. A moment later, she vanished into the smoke. The fire was gone. The sky was clear, and I was left wondering, was she just a cat or something more? True compassion often reveals the extraordinary in the ordinary path.